just cover it and turn it on up into, gets you remember the temperature. Does anybody remember?
120, 140.
120, 122 to 140 is typical of this, and these get pretty hot, so you got to be careful with that. I'll show you each room. They're going to be different in a sense of what they have, because that has a dial. This has digital. These are our newer ones with the digital, a little bit nicer. But like I said, we're going to put one at that table, one at that table, and then certain rooms will have their own. So if you don't have your own, then you're going to probably share with another group, so that there's only two groups per crock pot, if so. And we are going to do 11 total stones. So 11 is really all you need. And then I'll go through the setup. So this is really just going to be the starting part. It's going to be a whole process of starting. So we will simply get every room started once I pair you guys up and everyone comes, so I can put you in your room. If you have a room, if not, then if you're here early tomorrow, you can help set up as well, because it takes a while. It takes about 30 minutes to 40 minutes to warm up each room. I'll be right now. Other than that, you guys know your partners, right? Let me clock in, Jim, and then we'll start. I'll give you guys your rooms. I know not a lot of people are here, such as this will hold water. Because we don't have a sink readily available right in front of you, sometimes you will. Or you're going to use a men's and women's restroom to wash the stones itself. Yeah, today was one. These are going to be used to pick up the hot stones. There's several different kinds. There's the plastic and or metal. This will be used to scrub the stones after at the end. Typically, if we have the big sink, we will have one section with dirty stones, one section with clean, someone washing the clean stones. It's a whole process, because if you're constantly working on someone with the stones. But since we're bringing it down to placement and ones you work with, it's going to be a little simpler for you guys. Other sponges, bigger ones. So each one will have it. If you're here tomorrow early and you want to help set up, you just simply will place one of these at each area, or come get your own and then keep it with your box that you're going to use. Other than that, I'll find the soap. I don't know where the soap is, but it's just simple antibacterial hand soap, or Dial or Dawn, whatever one Dr. Sunny has used in the past. But usually Dawn is probably the best because it takes out all the oils. If you see some of the rocks and they start having dips or holes, make sure you leave those out to the side, because we're trying not to use those anymore, because they do catch bacteria and dead skin cells. So you want to be careful with that. Even if you scrub, sometimes those little holes don't, still carry it. Same thing, it's the same setup as Swedish, so sheets and face cradles and bolsters. Other than that, the difference is the whole setup of this, and so I'll go through it as you guys get into your rooms. Try to plug it in now, and then we'll start getting our rocks and placing them in there. And then I will do a demo of how to place the rocks on the prone and supine, and then we'll start practicing with them. Simple as that. Let's see, Demetrius and Jaime are partners. You're gonna.
Oh, they didn't set up the.
Maybe the problem is here. Turn on? Nope. Don't think so. This is turn. Is turn on?
Yeah, it's on.
Turn on?
Yeah, it's on.
Oh, so okay. 1:13.
But you have to also get water in here.
This is the right now, yeah.
120 to 140. So anywhere between 122, 120, 145 is the highest that you can go. If you're increasing it because you want to warm them up quick, you also have to bring it down after because they don't want to keep them really hot. You have to be able to hold it in your hand as well.
What is that? 72?
That's just current temperature.
Oh, current
The target.
okay.
Yeah. So
And put the stone as the
you put the stones, just simply
Here?
lay them in here, and then fill it with water.
water.
But you guys, you're sharing it, so you're gonna have clean stones only in here. Don't bring that hot, dirty stone in here, because
And one layer. Huh?
one layer, yeah. Yeah, so because you are sharing it, and possibly they may have to share it if the crock pot doesn't work. We have to make sure that only clean ones are in here, and you guys keep your dirty raw. Each of you guys have one of these in your bucket or bucket. This is your bucket, or that can be your bucket, the tray. You can use that for filling up or for traveling to your room.
Oh, you did? I wonder where you get the water from.
It's yours, guys?
Oh, go for it.
No, I'm sure with the different.
It's yours?
See if you're able to actually put your hand under there. If it's too hot, obviously you're gonna always use the tool, so it doesn't matter really. Have a towel readily at hand. Yeah, just grabbing it. Have the towel readily available just in case it's too hot. Other than that, on stone, skin to skin, just get if we're doing placement. So I use a towel or a hand towel just like this for the placement points. And I'll show you guys how to do it in a second. Do you guys want to like I said, it's no different than it's no anything. It's not Tuesday. It's Tuesday, yes.
Well, it feels good when the AC kicks on.
Remember for your. Remind me for.
And guess what? I did, bro. I did bring it too.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even thinking about it.
You think about that. Don't worry.
Huh?
Tell me what do you want, you know?
Yeah.
We can change it.
It's in my car.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's just as the same as providing a Swedish massage. You're just using the stones as your tool in placement of your hands. Well, your hands are right there. Go ahead and lift your ankles up. I don't have a hair today, so my rocks are not hot. I didn't put them in the heater on purpose, but I will just demonstrate how you can also do it without heating them. But when I want to do placement, I obviously will have a towel, or even if this is thicker or has a blanket, I will leave it as well for placement, because we're just kind of channeling the chakras or placing them in chakra regions. I always look for at least for the sacrum, the biggest rock. This is not the biggest rock, but this is the big one I just pulled out. So obviously these will be hot, but I usually place the sacrum rock just along there. They're not hot, so she's not going to get the full glory of the heat, but the heat will penetrate down into her sacrum. And I like to leave this one even when I've taken off the others. At the end, I will fold up the whole towel and just leave it on the sacrum for the whole entire session, just because it sends heat throughout the spine and throughout the spinal cord and throughout the. So I will leave the sacrum stone just always there until I obviously move into the legs and everything, or turn her over. But just remember it's there if you just set aside.
Do you ever make bread?
what you do when you're gliding with it, when you're doing movement. If you're placing the hot stone, the thing that you have to risk is you're gonna burn them. If you're placing it there, it sits there, the heat of that stone will just seep down. They will have this nice burnt skin and probably really see you. Yeah. So these are not hot, so luckily I can just do that. But simply placing it and then you align. Some people will start, obviously, they always start with the root chakra and they just place it and hold, have the client either take a deep breath, they have this whole routine. I've seen many different ways. They just simply hold for a few seconds, just introducing it to the body because most likely it's kind of warm. You want to also ask the client, how does that feel? Because if it's too hot, then you may need another layer of towels there. And if it's hot for you, you gotta be careful too. So simply just like that. And if I have to move somewhere, I simply cover it and move away from it so that the heat doesn't let it escape from it. And then obviously you want to continue placing it correctly. It can be different per person, space-wise, but simply just along the chakra areas. We go one more here, two here, and that's pretty much it for the back area. If we are placed, I'll show you the whole placement of the one time. This definitely helps you as therapists to get your hands warm. It's the best kind of tool, just simply holding it in that area.
Do you have a pleasure?
Just normal hand pressure, yeah. Same thing. You can do one at a time, or I do two because they're smaller. I can do two. Then once I've placed those, I will let those sit on her body, just like a hot pad or a hot towel is just sending through hot heat through the entire body. If she had her hands here, can you put the other one too? If not, I'll just simply go under and place it there on her hand. This any size will, as long as it just sits comfortably in there. This one as well, placing here. Sometimes you can go up to the highest one. It's not really recommended just because it will fall. And it's also uncomfortable, especially if it's hot. So I usually just go up to the thymus and just leave it there in that region. It's a little lower, but it would be a little closer. Another placement is, we said 2 for the hands, so 1, 2, 1, 2. See how the sheet just holds it in place. If it was skin to skin, then most likely it was gonna fall. And this is the hardest part, is the feet. In which leaving them there, they're definitely gonna slide down. So what you can do, sorry, you're okay. I tend to tuck it and hold it as it will stay with the sheet. Same thing, you can use a towel as well. Hold it and tuck it just like that. Hopefully it stays. That should be fine. And it's only gonna be for a few minutes or a few seconds. If she's cold, I'll definitely do this as well. And just leave her there, and that's placement for the prone position. I think that was 11. A little bit more. Yeah, 13. One that you don't necessarily have to do 2 is this one. You can just simply leave that to 1 if you wanted to. I did 2 just because it kind of gets that whole region area. The other one is if the feet they don't stay, it's not necessary. They will be using it for working anyways. So that is just normal position for holding. And then when you want to work in specific areas, remember to take them off, place them on the side because these are just your holding rocks or displacement rocks. And then you get your 2 warm ones and start working with the 2. Typically 2 to 3. Because the rocks will eventually after you're jumping.
So once you keep the placement, they're done. You're done.
You're pretty much done.
Those are just to start getting the body wound up and activating the chakra.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that is the chakra position. Now I will show you technique style. So sometimes you are in the studio, you're doing a hot stone, and you don't have time to introduce the chakra kind of setting. or hold positions. So again, you only get up to 24 rocks for the entire body, right? Because there's places where they only give you 24 to 25 rocks for the whole entire body. So I always put the sacrum rock there just to provide heat throughout the spine. I leave it there and put your hands to the side of it. And then just roll it out. Then simply folding up her back, exposing. I don't have time for placement, so I get my 2 hot rocks. This is more technical. This is not anything to do with chakra. This is technical movement. Can you give me a cream? A cream. So these are hot. They're not really hot. They're room temperature. But I simply will. What do I do first? I have them out from my rocks. I leave them to the side to cool down. She's not going to move, hopefully, any sudden movements. So I leave them to the side because I don't have a table. I only have my table to utilize. I always want to what first?
Warm up your hands.
Warm up my hands, followed by, what do I do next? Slowly introduce my hands. Effleurage, so warming up techniques, right? Warming up techniques. You never want to place the stones directly on the skin until you warm up the skin itself. So you want to warm up the muscles, warm up the entire back with effleurage. So that's why I say Swedish is the best technique or modality. You can use many different modalities with the stones and you can add it, such as deep tissue or anything else. But Swedish is the easiest to warm up. Say I have warmed up for a few minutes, a few strokes, fill my rocks, they feel okay, ready to get. You want to place a little bit of lubricant on them, whatever it may be that you're using. Sorry, it's all nasty. A little bit. This is really thick, so you want to put it a little bit, enough to have the glide, because if you put it dry, this is a dry rock, it has no movement. Sorry, I'm using it. Yeah, compared to this. Simple, easy. You want to be careful with doing this so much because your fingers are stiff. Just simply put it into your palm like this and glide as if you're doing the effleurage stroke. How's that feel? I mean, it's not heated, but it still feels different, right?
I mean, it feels warm. It must just be your hands.
It's my hands. So always kind of lubricant the rock first. It's going to be a little warm to touch. Tell the client you're going to introduce it, not just straight going onto the back. I'm going to introduce this to your body. Take a few deep breaths. Go ahead. And then as these start cooling down, I do placement. And then I leave them here. If they are under a certain temperature where they lost its complete heat, placement is fine because it's going to stay there. And this is technical, it's nothing to do with chakra, but it is, in a sense, applying them in the areas of the chakra. So, same thing. Same thing if these were bigger. I continue to go through the entire body, through working the entire body with the body placement. Working the entire body, working the entire body, placement. Working the entire body, and sometimes just placement. This is another technique, another way you can introduce it when you want to place the rocks on the body. They're not hot after I've worked with them and used all the heat. The upper body has sucked it up. My hands have sucked up the heat. And now it's just simple placement. I will sometimes leave it there as I work on the legs. And obviously I'll cover her up, leave it there. Hopefully she's not a heavy breather, or these will just be sliding off. Because they do. Or I just simply, when I'm ready to take them off, I also use them as a stroke. So I'm gliding up, throughout the entire body, off. Gliding up, through the entire body, off. Gliding down, up, through the entire body, off. Same thing, gliding through the entire body, off. And those are 30, and that's it. And then I cover up and work towards the bottom. So that's not to do with any placement. That's when you just have hot stone massage, basic technique of stone massage in that sense. Oh, see? And you gotta be careful with that. All right. Well, now you have a bunch of things. Alright, this here doesn't want to hold my mouse. So now I have to go through the whole factor of taking them away. I'm just going to use these for showing I use also the towel comes in handy to hold and then take them to where we need to so you know that these are urinating. So I can place them simply here, here. Now I will show you the others. So anything you want to see in the back side or front side is pretty much the same. You're just using the tools for FRI and massage. And I will definitely go to each room to make sure that you're okay with that. Because you guys are still practicing your Swedish technique. So you're just introducing down this stone into it. Pretty simple.
Time-wise, about the same as Swedish.
About the same, exactly. Sometimes you don't have extra time. It's the same hour, it's the same 90 minutes. You're just adding the stone. So sometimes it feels like, oh, this is easy, I don't need to do much, but then you have to remember the setup, the tear, you have to wash them after. You have to also involve the rocks on the placement. Sometimes I think I get a little too nervous with them because of the heat from them. I don't want to hurt the person while working on them. So I always sometimes am very cautious with them. But other than that, it's simple. You just use your sheet or blanket or towel, whatever it may be, and that is protecting the skin so there isn't burning going to happen. But they do get hot and they will feel warm, especially if they've never had hot stone before. They will feel hot. Sometimes also, I know I put the big one on the sacral, but sometimes therapists will put one here and one here to kind of do the same as the side. So it is helpful if you have some, and just simply holding it down produces the heat to kind of get in through the body and the roots. On that. Same thing as draping for Swedish, you're just doing the same techniques, just adding the stone into your work. Take this off your ankles, right? So the supine position is not 100%. The back is the main thing I will be testing you guys on, especially with placement. For the supine, I'm just going to teach you how to do it. I'm not going to ask in the test. You want to just learn it, and just in case you ever come across it. As for placement, okay? So you're going to go ahead. Slide down. This will come in handy too, so we're not doing skin-to-skin contact. If you do place one of the small stones here, it'll stay for a bit. You're not going to leave it constantly, you just want it for a couple minutes or so, even seconds, depending on. I'm just going to use the same rocks, that way I don't have to continue to wash it. You guys won't obviously be working with the placement rocks are the same, but the ones you're working with your hands are going to be different. So if you want extra, there's extra to pull out. Just make sure that you know the difference between the dirty. If you're sharing, make sure you keep the dirty rocks to yourself and your clean rocks only in that tank. Or else you're gonna have to constantly be cleaning the whole entire thing. So if you place your dirty ones in there, it's contaminated now. So now you have to take the whole thing, wash it down, and then fill it again. So just be cautious with that. So the thing why it's a little trickier for placement on the front position of the body. Put these all around here. Trap you in with these stones. Okay. So same thing. You want to be careful, especially with the front area of the body. Placing around the middle is where I kind of start. Simply putting it around there, holding it, the other one a little bit higher, maybe about 3 to 4, just depends on how high you want the person's body as well. They're not hot, so obviously she wouldn't be able to feel it. And just in case, this is probably one of the areas that you want to be careful with, especially for those who have breast or have bladder chest because it may slide or fall, but that's why I use a towel to stop it or hold it. And I pretty much stay right there. If I can, I add this one, but that one, when they're breathing, has a tendency to fall. So you want to be careful with that. So I'll tap it in and may squeeze it down just slightly. Go here. And lock it in. You can lock it in both sides. You can't breathe. I just don't want it to die. I don't want you to die. And then, obviously for hands work placement, if not, I can simply just do this as well. Put it over the sheet. Put it over the sheet. Place one here, one here. This is extra. Typically, Dr. Sunny won't use time. He'll never show you guys that. We learned it in class, but he mainly just does the back. I'm showing you the front as well how it's done. But I won't test you with it. Only the back side. So the knee. The feet are very hard. This is very hard to put placement of the rock. She likes to cross her legs. Uncross her legs. That's why your hips hurt. That's why your hips have issues. Like cross her legs? Yeah. Wow. Well, when you're laying down. I suppose I will. This is not tiny, but there are many more tiny ones. You can put here for a second. I'm just kidding. We can't do it. It's impossible unless we had a very, very tiny one and it wasn't hot. I would probably leave it. It's okay. You can just simply just go over the body here. This one I don't even need for a long time. I just leave it for a few seconds. Once I feel I've done the entire body, let her rest a little bit, then I will. And some people will actually place one of them under the neck here and just leave it there. And just be careful. Make sure it's either wrapped or under the sheet so that it doesn't have that skin to skin heat. If it's too hot, just remove it. So it goes simply under the neck. So that it's cold. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And that's simple placement for the front. If you ever come across that, there's many more other ways. Some will add even more. Some will add the double, like double the amount. It just depends on how many stones you're working with. The same thing for technical or movement. You want to take these off just so that they're not in your way. Simply, if you can't breathe, this is something that you simply use your two rocks as if you're using. First, warm up the muscle, warm up the tissue, get it ready, get your hot stones, introduce circular motions, gliding motions with the hot stones. Once you feel that heat is kind of lost, flip the rock. Do it another time. Same thing with the back. Anytime you feel the heat on that side is lost, flip the rock because most likely it still has more heat on that side and just work those areas just like that. Same thing with the foot, circular motion. You can use, I only use one for the foot just because my hands are big. I don't need two. And I can just simply just work the toes and foot. The edges are really good for when you want to kind of get into smaller parts. That tickle, sorry. Simply just up and down through the toes. I'm not putting a lot of pressure, it's my hand pressure, just simply using the tool, what it's used for, kind of the edges. What would you say? You want to get your heel? Okay. You have a picky customer. Like, don't forget my heel. I will do that. Especially if you've got it enough times. So you just want to be careful when you do a small circle, small circulation, get around that ankle. Same thing with the legs, around the knee. Simple circles around. You don't have to go. Don't ever go directly because this is a bone. You want to be careful with that. Around. Feels really nice with the warmth. Working all the way. Okay. When you get into the neck and circle, best to use a stool like the one, like any of those that you guys are sitting on back there. Those work pretty good. You sit and you simply have the two starting with the chest. You're using it as if you're doing a Swedish massage, or you're using the smaller rocks just to glide up and down, effleurage, circular motions. never want to really dig with it yet until you have more of that technique with it. We can probably practice that once we've done the tissue, and then I can show you. But I don't want you guys to dig so much with it. Just more gentle. Other than that, that's it. Any questions? All right, we can take a break for about 15 minutes, and then we'll start